guys, Tiffany here with a cosplay tutorial over how I made the sword for my Sacred Shield Charlotte cosplay from the mobile game Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. And as always, I have a blueprint to help you make your own sword for your Charlotte costume, and it's available on my website, www.tiffanygordoncosplay.com, or see the link below. To start off, I traced the outer shape of the sword onto 12mm EVA foam using a Sharpie, and then cut out 2 pieces of it with a box cutter. I then applied contact cement glue to both sides of the sword and then let them dry before fully attaching them together. And for the structural support of the sword as well as the handle, I used various sizes of CPVC pipe and PVC pipe, and then epoxied each piece together. Next, I traced this piece onto our EVA foam part of the sword, and then cut out that space with a box cutter. This is gonna make it so that way our pipe will fit inside of the blade and be hidden. For attaching it inside, I placed the pipe and then used lots and lots of hot glue to attach, making sure to add glue to both sides of the sword. And when all of the glue was dry, I then went to my workbench and then used a 2-inch sanding drum to sand all of the edges so that way my blade would have a point. For more of the detail pieces on the blade, I then traced the blueprint onto 4mm EVA foam and then cut out with a X-Acto knife. And for the even smaller detailed piece, I also cut that one out of 4mm and then traced out the little detailed trim with a Sharpie onto the foam, and then used an X-Acto knife to pierce the foam halfway through. This is a fun little trick that once you use a heat gun, all of that lines that you just halfway cut through the foam are going to open up and leave a nice little channel. Next, I applied more contact cement glue to our blades, and then when they were dry, slowly started to attach each of the pieces together, as well as adding a few detail pieces from 2mm foam. For the basket part of the sword, I ended up attaching 2 pieces of 12mm EVA foam as well as 2 more pieces of 6mm EVA foam to give me my desired thickness. For the side parts of the basket, I ended up getting some really thick CPVC pipes and heated up with a heat gun and heat-resistant gloves and slowly bent it to the shape that I wanted. And once I got the shape, I held it in place until it cooled and hardened into the new shape. With the pipes, I then traced it onto our EVA foam basket part so that way I knew where to cut out with a box cutter for these pieces to be inserted into, as well as cutting out the center section of it so that way our sword will go through the center. And then attached 2 more pieces of 12mm EVA foam to either side so that way we had one chunky piece of EVA foam. Next, I cut out all of the detailed pieces for the basket from 2mm EVA foam and started to glue them in place. I also went to my workbench and sanded all of these layers of EVA foam flat around the edges as well as rounding the edge so it looks nice and crisp and clean. And when that was done, I then wanted to attach the little handle parts on the basket, and for this I applied contact cement glue to the pipe as well as to the EVA foam, and once dry, attached them together. There will be a little bit of a gap, but we'll take care of that later. For the detailed pieces on the basket pipe parts, I ended up stacking 4 pieces of 12mm EVA foam and then carved them with a box cutter so that way they flared out at the end. Sanded the sides and then used the sanding drum to drill out a hole so that way the pipe will attach to. Next, I added a detail trim to the ends of them, and then again with the sanding drum, I ended up carving out little divots so that way it had a nice texture to it. Now to attach the basket to the actual blade. For this, again, I used contact cement glue, applying it to the bone structure of the blade as well as to the inside part of the basket, and then slid it in place to where it was going to go. I then proceeded to add more of the EVA foam detail pieces to the basket as well as some to the basket handle parts. And for the pommel part of the sword, I also stacked 3 pieces of 12mm EVA foam, glued them together, carved the shape that I want, and then sanded it. And for the detail pieces on it, I ended up using the X-Acto knife and then piercing partly through the EVA foam. Again, this is going to be activated with a heat gun and heat treating to make all of those pieces pop and open. And then again, continued to add more details with various sizes of EVA foam, gluing together and then adding more foam and continuing this process. Now that all of our pieces are attached to our sword, it's now time to heat treat the entire thing using a heat gun. And there was, like I said, a few cracks and seams where we attached some of the pipes, and to fill these, I ended up using some foam clay, using water to apply it so that way it would stick together. And after 24 hours of letting that dry, then applied contact cement glue to all of the exposed pipe. This is very important because this is going to make it so that way Plasti-Dip can stick to the pipe. If you do not do this step, then it will just peel right off. And once that was dry, then applied 3 heavy coats of Plasti-Dip to the entire sword. Now for my favorite part, painting! And all the paint that we're going to be using is from Createx Color, and it's their Wicked Color line. First starting off by using their Gold Chrome, and once that paint was dry, I then applied black and wiped it away with a paper towel while it was still wet. This is going to make it so all of the black paint will stay in the creases and make it look more aged. Next, I masked off the gold section, leaving the gem part exposed, and then using the pearl red and white, I then sprayed the gem with a few layers so that way it would stay nice and shiny. For the blade part, I used Quicksilver, and then added some black for some shadowing. Next, I masked off the blade part, leaving the very center section exposed, and then airbrush painted it black, masked off that section once it was dry, and then did my final paint coat of a crimson red in the very center section. Now to remove all of the tape and paper and all of the masked off sections. And then did final detail painting with white airbrush paint onto all of the trimming and the little moon pieces on the sword's blade. The very final step was to seal the entire blade, and for this I used Createx Color's UVLS Clear, using their satin for the entire sword, and then using their gloss for just the gem part so that way it would be more like a realistic gem. And that is how I made my sword for my Sacred Shield Charlotte cosplay from the mobile game Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you liked it, and I hope it'll help you with your cosplay builds. And remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video, and I will see you for our next cosplay tutorial. Much love, guys. Mwah!